For most of my life, I prayed. I prayed for healing. I prayed for love. I prayed for change. But the more I prayed, the more I realized that life was giving me exactly the opposite. It was as if the universe responded with silence, or worse, with denial. Until one day, something changed inside me, a profound, transformative biological discovery. I understood that my body, my mind, and my reality were not obeying what I desired, but what I decreed as truth. It was no longer about wanting, it was about assuming that I am the author, that my subconscious obeys emotional commands, that my cells hear the vibration of what I declare with conviction. Decreeing is not repeating pretty words, it is communicating to the inner universe a certainty so strong that it becomes physiology, frequency, and destiny. And it was at that moment that everything began to change. I stopped asking the world for permission to live what I desired, and I began to reprogram my biology for what was already mine. The content I share now doesn't come just from books or labs, it comes from practice, from the cellular field, from the energy that pulses in the human body when mind and heart align. If you understand what it means to decree with coherence, you will realize that the miracle was never out there. It was always in the information you carry, and that, starting today, you can finally begin to transform. For many years, I repeated requests like a mantra. I asked for health, I asked for peace, I asked for success. But the more I asked, the more it seemed to move away from me. And it was only when I understood the biology behind this attitude that everything changed. The problem was in my own vibrational field, which was not emitting creative power, it was only reinforcing the fact that something was missing. When the mind thinks, I want, the body feels, I don't have. And then the nervous system triggers signals of lack, absence, and shortage. The cells, which are constantly receiving these signals, enter a state of mild stress. They shut down. The DNA responds by decreasing the expression of genes associated with vitality and begins to reinforce defense patterns. All of this is because the act of asking for something is part of a biological state of scarcity. Now, when I decree, when I clearly state that it is, the body hears a different frequency. It's like changing the radio station. It goes from survival mode to creation mode. The heartbeat changes, the breathing evens out, the hormone production adjusts. And then something fascinating happens. The body believes. Because biologically, there is no difference between reality and vivid imagination. This is the key point of conscious manifestation. It is not magic, it is applied biology. The vibration of the decree is not born of desire, but of certainty. And when certainty sets in, the cellular receptors open the doors to new chemical responses: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, elevated emotions that activate the immune system, the metabolism, and above all, the perception of possibility. That's how I began to understand that the body is the translator of thought, and that the biological universe responds not to what I say, but to what I feel as I say it. Asking reinforces the void. Decreeing fills the space with the presence of what already is. And that changes everything, because the cell, once reprogrammed, carries this new instruction to every corner of my being. It took me too long to understand why my most sincere wishes weren't coming true. I said I wanted to prosper, I wanted to find love, I wanted to change my life. But it was as if there was an invisible force pulling everything back. And that force wasn't outside of me, it was inside. It was my subconscious, that old autopilot that started being programmed when I couldn't even speak. From the age of 0 to 7, a child's mind operates in a state of hypnosis. Everything they hear, see, and feel goes straight to their subconscious without any filter. That's how I inherited beliefs that weren't even mine. Ideas like, money is hard to come by, I'm not good enough. This isn't for me. And then, as an adult, even when I tried to change my reality, my biology followed the old script. A request made by the conscious mind was sabotaged by a much older and more powerful program. The problem is that the subconscious operates 95% of the time, and it doesn't understand logical language. It understands repetition and emotion. If I ask for a change but deep down I don't believe in it, the body feels it. If I talk about abundance but I vibrate fear, the subconscious picks up on the incoherence and blocks the response. It's like trying to drive with one foot on the accelerator and the other on the brake. The energy stops. Nothing flows. That's when I realized decreeing is not just a semantic choice. It's a profound command that goes through the rational mind and reaches straight to the roots of the subconscious. When I declare it's mine and align myself emotionally with that statement, I begin to send new instructions that, with repetition and consistency, replace the old inherited scripts. This isn't theory. This is real, scientifically based reprogramming. I've seen it in EEG scans, in biological response tests, in field experiments. When the subconscious begins to accept a new truth, the entire body repositions itself. And that's when life begins to change, not because I asked it to, but because I finally rewrote the code I was telling it to lock down. The first time I came across epigenetics, I felt like I had discovered the hidden key to life. Because until then, I had been taught that genes were sovereign, that if something was written in the DNA, I was doomed. But that is not true. What determines the fate of a cell is not the gene itself, but the environment in which it lives. And that environment is shaped, among other things, by what I think, feel, and say. When I firmly decree something, I am not just throwing words into the wind. I am altering the chemical environment in which my cells swim. Elevated emotions, generated by conscious affirmations, activate biochemical pathways that silence genes of fear and activate genes of regeneration, well-being, and growth. This is epigenetics in action, biology bending to the mind. Therefore, making a decree is a tool for profound intervention. It is like giving my own organism a new mission. When I affirm with conviction, I am healthy, I am prosperous, I am free, the body begins to produce substances compatible with that reality. Hormones become balanced, synapses are strengthened, systems are reorganized to support that new truth. It's not about believing for the sake of believing. It's about repeating it with emotion until the cells accept it. Epigenetics shows that every cell has receptors that are sensitive to the chemical environment. If the environment changes, the cell changes. So by changing my words and emotions, I change the chemistry. And by changing the chemistry, I change the biological destiny of my body. Today, I understand that healing, transformation, manifestation, it all begins with a decree, an emotionally charged decree repeated with presence, sustained with intention. Because the cell doesn't read words, it reads vibration, and it is this vibration that decides whether the disease gene expresses itself or remains switched off, waiting for a new order. For years, I studied cells in the lab. I watched them respond to chemical signals as if they were dancing to music. But there was something that took my breath away. They also responded to invisible fields, fields of information, energy, frequency. And this made me realize that the human body is not just a biological machine, it is also a living antenna, constantly sending and receiving signals. What controls this field? Emotions, thoughts, internal vibrations. But it is not enough to think positively with the head if the heart is in despair. The energy field responds to coherence, to the perfect synchrony between what I think, feel, and believe. When the heart and the mind beat in the same rhythm, The message sent to the field is clear, powerful, without noise. I began to notice this in myself. When I asked for something with my mind but vibrated fear with my heart, nothing happened. The field perceived the disorder. It was like sending a scrambled signal to the universe. But when I decreed with aligned emotion, feeling each word in my entire body, it was as if the world around me began to rearrange the pieces. Things appeared. People appeared. Solutions flowed. This is where the real power of the decree comes in. It's not just mental, it's vibrational. A coherent decree turns on lights in the field. It's like tuning into a clear, interference-free radio station. The field around the body, which science is beginning to call the biofield, takes this as an instruction, and it reorganizes itself to respond to the new information being sent out. This is how I understood. The secret is not just in the words, but in the energy behind them. The decree that transforms is not what comes out of the mouth, it is what vibrates in harmony between the brain and the heart. And this harmony is what gives shape to reality, because the energy field does not distinguish imagination from experience. It responds to the vibration that I hold now. For a long time, I was told that I was a hostage to my genetics, that my destiny was locked in the genes I inherited from my parents. And because I believed this, I felt powerless. But everything changed when I realized that genetics is just the plan, and that I am the real architect. Epigenetics has proven that we are not victims, we are authors. And decreeing is the exact moment when I pick up the pen and start rewriting the script of my biology. When I adopt the role of a decreer, I step out of the victim role and into the creator role. I stop reacting to life and start shaping it. Every word I speak with intention and coherence is a command sent to my cells. It's like telling my body, this is the new reality. And my body obeys, not by magic, but because it has always responded to its environment. And now, I am the environment. Realizing this has been liberating. I am no longer limited by my family history, medical statistics, or past diagnoses. When I declare with conviction, I am strong, I am free, I am abundant, I create an elevated self-image that changes my body posture, my brain chemistry, and even the rhythm of my heart. The biological creator within me awakens. That's how I understood. Decreeing is not just a technique, it's a stance toward life. It's the moment when I stop asking the world for permission to be who I am and start telling the world who I choose to be. And this information spreads in waves. It starts in my thoughts, descends into my emotions, translates into hormones, and manifests itself in behaviors. This is the revolution. Stop waiting for miracles and start provoking transformations. Decreeing is a decision of identity. It is taking command of the mind, the emotion, and the cell. And when this command becomes routine, the biology reorganizes itself around this new order, until being a creator is no longer an effort, but the only possible way to exist. When I began to observe my repetitive patterns, I realized that many of them were not really mine. They were invisible inheritances passed down from generation to generation as if they were absolute truths. Beliefs about money, love, worthiness, success, all of these were engraved in my subconscious before I was even aware of who I was. And until I broke with these inherited programs, nothing really changed. Scarcity is one of the most common programs. Phrases like, life is hard, money doesn't grow on trees, we have to be content, took hold of me like a virus. And even as an adult, even while studying science, I realized how these ideas continued to run in the background. I could desire abundance, but I vibrated with fear. I could plan for growth, but my actions meant shrinkage. It was a constant internal conflict. That's when the decree appeared as a cutting tool, a vibrational rupture. When I began to affirm with force, I am abundance. The universe is generous. I receive easily. My body found it strange. At first it seemed like a lie, but I persisted. Because I understood that the decree does not combat the old program, it replaces it. And over time, the new information becomes stronger. It gains space. It takes root. Each time I repeated the new command with true emotion, a new synapse was formed. This is how the brain learns. And where there was fear, confidence began to emerge. Where there was limitation, openness appeared. What was once an ancestral repetition became a conscious choice. And this process was reflected in matter. Opportunities, encounters, solutions, everything began to happen more fluidly. Breaking the invisible contracts with scarcity was not easy, but it was necessary. And for me, declaring it became a ritual of reprogramming, not just mentally, but energetically, emotionally, and cellularly. Because when I change the internal field, the external field has to follow suit. And when that happens, it is no longer possible to return to the old frequency. Abundance becomes the new normal. After so many years immersed in cellular biology, I needed to see how the theory applied to real life. That's when I developed a simple but powerful daily practice that connects mind, emotion, and body. 3 elements were essential: conscious affirmations, vivid visualizations, and anticipatory gratitude. This triad, repeated with intention, reprograms the subconscious and transforms cells into partners in manifestation. I start my day with an affirmation. Out loud or in my mind, I clearly declare what I choose to live. Today, I am guided by abundance. My body is in harmony. Everything flows in my favor. But it's not enough to just say it. I feel each sentence as if it was already a reality. It's this feeling that activates the internal circuits. The subconscious captures not the words, but the vibration carried in them. Then I close my eyes and visualize it in great detail. It's not just imagining it, it's acting it out internally. I see myself in that new reality as if it were a movie playing inside me. My body begins to respond as if it was already happening. My heartbeat changes, my chemistry adjusts, my biology aligns. My cells understand this is true. And finally, the key that makes it all possible: gratitude. But not gratitude for what I already have, but for what is still manifesting. When I give thanks in advance, I send a signal of certainty to the field. It's like saying, this is already real. It just hasn't arrived physically yet. This coherence between mind, emotion, and body opens paths that were previously closed. This routine takes no more than 20 minutes, but it has an impact that lasts all day. Because repeated day after day, it builds a new identity. And this new identity vibrates at a different frequency. And when the frequency changes, the experiences follow. This is how the cells stop repeating the past and start building the future that I choose to live. Every cell in my body got the message the moment I stopped asking and started decreeing. It wasn't the world that changed, it was me. Reality only responded to the new command I began to issue. And it all started with a simple but powerful decision to take ownership of my biology. Comment below the phrase that resonated with you the most in this video. To decree is to activate the biology of the impossible and make the invisible inevitable.